and today we are going to be looking at why we can only see one of the trajectories that we are living out simultaneously as this particular particle. So imagine a spider web. Okay, so you're walking outside and there's dew all over the grass, and then you come across a spider web. And let's pretend the spider web is perfect so you can see it, and you can see the tiny eye in the middle of the spider web. Okay, so the little circle in the middle of the spider web, and then all of the little silken threads kind of starburst off of that center of the spider web. And there's little threads connecting the primary threads that have come off. So you have all these beautiful threads and a center of the spider web. Now, when we are created, when our sperm hit the egg and created this particle, for me, it created the Marin particle. So this exact replica of myself, okay, there's only one of me. There's only one Marin, and I am as unique as a snowflake. I am as unique as a blade of grass. I am as unique as my thumbprint or fingerprint. So there's only one me. There's not a whole bunch of versions of me. There is one me. And that one me is the eye of our spider web, okay? So that particle, when the sperm hit the egg and it created this explosion, we're going to pretend it created the spider web. So the sperm hits the egg, and that's going to be the center of our spider web. That created a bundle of cells that started dividing and morphing and growing and becoming me, this particle of myself. Now, our consciousness, we're going to look at, is not inside this bundle of cells. It's not residing inside this body, this particle that is me. And we're going to pretend, this is just so we can have imagery, that the consciousness or our consciousness is looking at our spider web, okay? And our overarching consciousness can see the whole total spider web. Now, our particle, the particle that was created when the sperm hit the egg and it created this particle, we're going to pretend, because this is what it is, that the particle that the sperm and egg created is an observation tool. Okay, so the overarching consciousness is like, okay, I want to see how this particular particle reacts and responds to a multitude of situations. And it uses this particle that's in the center of our spider web to kind of get an on-the-ground perspective, an on-the-ground viewership of what's going on. Now, in quantum theoretics, we can have a particle and it can be in multiple places simultaneously. So this observation tool that is me, that is the center of this spider web and is uniquely Marin, is simultaneously looking down, observing every single strand and every single branching of this spider web. And every single strand on the spider web is a different life experience that this version, that this Marin, that this unique particle is going to experience. Now we need to look at isolationism. So as our particle is in the center of this spider web, we're going to pretend it has a bunch of little blinders on, like when you see a horse and the horse is going down the street, click, clock, click, clock, click, clock. And it has blinders on, so it's not getting distracted on things that are going on outside of the blinders. So the center of our spider web our observation tool, which is this body, which is this Marin, on every single one of these trajectories is going to have blinders on, because we don't want to confuse what's going on another trajectory with this one. Because what's happening on another trajectory actually isn't relevant to what's happening on this one. We might have one of these trajectories and then all of a sudden we have a little branching really close to the center, and that could have been because on that particular trajectory the particle was miscarried. But the particle still exists. It's in the center of the spider web, and we're going to see that there are some really long trajectories also. And so it could be that another trajectory, we had a death at 10 years old, at 12 years old, at 16, 17, 18, 19, 30, 90. And so every single one of those trajectories plays out a different life experience. In the end, when all of the life experiences are done, and there is a finite amount of them, that's why our body can only last so long. That's why our body doesn't last eternally. We have a time limit on this human form. When that is done, when it's played out, every scenario that it could possibly play out, where we can understand what it's like to have one experience and understand what it's like to have the opposite experience. So it comes together and creates a whole. When that life is done and this little particle is done, our overarching consciousness takes this beautiful spider web that we have created that isn't just flat, it's like beautiful all and around. So there's a whole bunch of trajectories. Then we get to see it all play out and how it balances each other, how it balances. So we might have had one trajectory that was really, really hard, and we might have had one trajectory that wasn't quite as hard, but it balanced itself out. It's like a puzzle piece. So we have a piece that looks like this, and we have a piece that looks like this, and it comes together and it creates a whole picture. So the reason why our brain only sees one of these trajectories, or let me take that back, it feels like, it seems like our brain can only see one of these trajectories, is because it has blinders on each path. On each trajectory, there's a set of blinders. And it does that so we don't get confused. So we don't have mixed signals. So we don't have mixed messages. So we just can focus on one of these trajectories at a time. We are focusing on every single trajectory at the exact same time. And every single vantage point that our particle has, so let's say that this particular set of blinders is looking down this one that is talking to you. And there's another thing that's going on somewhere else in my life, and it has a set of blinders over there. Is the same brain. It's the same kind. So it's like, hold on, I'm thinking the best way to describe this. If we have If you had a balloon and you put a billion holes inside the balloon, and then you filled it with water and you could see it come out, and you see like all these little different sprays of water coming out of it, but it's still the balloon, right? And so inside the balloon, if you were to be inside the balloon swimming around and you look out one of the little holes, you're like, oh, and you see what the world looks like through that particular hole. It's still you. And you swim around and you look out this little hole, you're like, oh, that's what the world looks like from that particular hole. Well, imagine that you had enough eyes to see out of all those holes at the exact same time. And that could be kind of confusing, but you do. You have enough eyes that are going to look out all those holes out of that balloon, and you're going to be able to witness what the world looks like from each one of those vantage points. It's still you. And when that balloon pops, then you get to put the whole picture together. So the reason why we don't get to see, or our brain has these blinders on, is because as it's looking out every single one of those holes, it just doesn't want to confuse it. Because maybe outside the hole on this side, there's a sunset going on, and the hole going on this side, there's the sunrise going on. So it just doesn't want to be confused. That's all. And it wants to experience that particular trajectory as much as it can. So if it's looking at the sunset, it wants to look and absorb that sunset. And the sunrise side, it just wants to absorb and experience that sunrise. Thank you for your question. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye.